of the feedback I've gotten from managers is that the AI actually does a better job of helping them troubleshoot the issue in real time than actually the manufacturer of the machine themselves.
Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industries. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli K. Matthews Caruth, and I am so excited to be here with you. I am defreeze, I guess, is defrosting, maybe is the word that I should say, as we have experienced all of the freeze, and especially in the South. We're not used to that, so we don't even have clothes for that. But we've had a great time anyway. It's nice to be able to work from home, to be able to bring you, the listener, a special guest. And that's what I have for you today. So, Robert, if you will jump on here and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate you having me on. My name is Robert Merritt. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called SlateUp. SlateUp is a manufacturing talent platform that really specializes in helping manufacturers do a better job of identifying and acquiring career-minded frontline workers. And then we have a suite of different SaaS solutions that really help them upskill and retain that workforce. And then we also have solutions that provide workforce incentives back to both manufacturers and frontline workers so that manufacturers can continue to invest in the workforce, and then ultimately the frontline workers have the funds to be able to improve their skills, get trained, educated, and advance their careers.
Yeah, which we'd love to talk about here and really want to dive into that. But before I get to that, tell us a little bit about you. How did you find this space? How did you get into industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in the industry a long time, and see, I'm 46, and I started my career kind of in the world of talent when I was 23, right out of college, and got started in the job board industry. And then a few years after that, I started a recruiting firm that specialized in sales and marketing search, and I ran that for the better part of a decade. And then I had an opportunity to jump over into really more of the tech-enabled side of the space when I went to work for Upwork and ran enterprise sales for Upwork, which is, as your listeners may know, is a large freelancing platform, one of the largest freelancing marketplaces in the world. And about a year and a half ago, Alloy Partners and the 1842 Fund came to me with this idea about really a platform that was really focused on manufacturing and more specifically frontline work. And it was an area that I had a lot of interest in. And as we put the business model together, it just made a lot of sense. And so I jumped ship and founded a company, and we launched in November of 2024. So it's been a really dynamic and exciting, roughly year and a half.
Yeah, and before we jump into kind of your predictions, it makes me think of just coming out of college, entrepreneur. It sounds like this is kind of business and entrepreneurship is kind of in your forte. What about the workforce side, the recruiting side? It also seems like it's getting your attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think being in the world of talent for as long as I have, those are kind of part and parcel with the concept of recruiting and staffing and workforce in general. So I think that those have always been very part of my career, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I had started my career kind of with this concept of being an entrepreneur and things like that. It's just kind of the path that's evolved, and I've always found that I enjoy building things as a part of joining something really big and established. So I would say yes, the concept of recruiting the workforce, that's always been part of what I've done professionally.
Yeah, and we talk a little bit about uncertainty in the market right now is definitely there. And, being in that space of building something from scratch, starting new, even if it's within a company, growing in different areas, there is some uncertainty there. And so I'm excited to kind of hear your views on that as we go into this new year, 2026. And look at what is manufacturing. It is uncertain a little bit, but you've got some
Yeah.
predictions. I'm excited to hear them, and so I'm just gonna let you kind of tell us more about them. I think there were seven predictions, but you don't have to go through all of them. You can save some if you want.
Sure. Is there any one specifically that you wanted to start with?
Yeah, well, I love to talk about AI, so we can jump to that one.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that, the broader the broader prediction about AI is that I think AI will continue to evolve and expand, within the world of manufacturing and specifically the world of frontline work. And I think also by extension, we'll continue to see AI expand and become well, I guess what I would describe as more useful within, the human capital segments that really support manufacturing and frontline work. I think based off of what I've seen over the last, year and a half, AI is not really emerging at a massive level within manufacturers, but the things that I see, starting to evolve is really using AI as kind of a co-pilot to sit alongside frontline workers and especially frontline managers, within facilities to be able to provide them with education, insights, and recommendations on how to do everything from, properly troubleshoot a materials issue or a production or fabrication issue, be able to set up machines better, be able to actually perform maintenance on machines, which actually I think will be a very large use case. One of the things that I've seen firsthand in the last, 6 months is that finding something like a maintenance technician that has the skill sets across a wide variety of different machinery within a facility is extremely hard to find. It's one of the toughest positions to fill. And so, to kind of fill that vacuum, so to speak, is what's happening is managers are using, ChatGPT and other models to be able to provide them with documentation on the machines, how they should be set up, and then also to provide recommendations on how to fix very specific problems that occur actually during the production process. And some of the feedback I've gotten from managers is that the AI actually does a better job of helping them troubleshoot the issue in real time than actually the manufacturer of the machine themselves. And so I think that that's an example of how, putting these tools into the hands of frontline leaders and frontline workers, really enables them to, I think, work cohesively alongside the machine and be able to be more effective and productive in the day-to-day role. So I think that's how we'll, example of how we'll continue to see it evolve.
Yeah, it makes me think of another one of yours. It says the real growth story isn't, more jobs, it's which jobs. And I think that that's key,
Yeah.
just about what you're talking about, how we do have to look at manufacturing different and work differently, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think also there's probably more of a macro statement there as well. There's a lot of manufacturing headwinds, and I think the area in which you see like the most acute problem is in skilled positions. Like there's literally not enough people with the skills, the education, the training to go fill that gap. And yet at the same time, we have this very large unskilled workforce and then really a latent workforce that we're not even tapping into and bringing into the industry. And so, when I think about 2026, it's a lot about kind of, and when I think about hiring within the segment, it's probably more of a shift or in mix moving towards more of solutions to try to fill those skill roles as opposed to large increases in hiring within unskilled to semi-skilled positions within manufacturing.
Yeah, and also we can't expect people to know the job right when they get out of college or right, even if it is they've had experience somewhere else, things are changing so fast. It feels like we're having to train a lot more on the job. So there's a piece where, apprenticeships were working. What does that look like now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of zooming out for a second, I think on the whole, there is still a kind of a default mindset by most manufacturers to have a experience first hiring filter. And I think that exacerbates the problem. And we don't have a lot of good tools and resources that really allow you to make hiring decisions based off of fit, about based off of capacity or what that person's potential or capabilities are. And so I think that that's, going back to AI for a second, that is one of the current, I think, shortcomings with AI is really not helping us be able to make decisions, based on softer things that are not explicitly related to what the person's actual skill in that particular area is. Um, so that's one part of the problem. I think the other part of the problem is that whether it's at a high school level, it's at a post-secondary education level, it's at a trade school level, like we just simply don't put enough people into the market that have that experience. And when you think about programs like apprenticeships, um, I think apprenticeships are incredibly valuable at the individual level, right? They can be life-changing at the individual level. That said, and this is maybe my provocative statement of the podcast, I don't think that apprenticeships really live up to the rosy narrative that's in the market. And the reason is because one, the amount of people that are enrolled in apprenticeships is like even just in the state of Indiana, it's like 1/3 or maybe even a quarter of the total amount of people that we actually need to deploy into the workforce. So like one, we're starting with like a really low denominator. You then add in the fact that like the completion rates on apprenticeships is like 25-30%. So if you have 25,000 apprentices, like, okay, great. Now we're putting out about 8,000. There's 80,000 unfilled jobs just in the state of Indiana alone. So it's like there's a math problem here that I don't feel like is being discussed enough. And I feel like it's somewhat of a bespoke solution to a really scaled problem, right? So I just don't feel like, in
Do, do you
isolation,
think it's
apprenticeships.
because we're not paying them as they're going? Like in the and then they leave the market, like, where it's kind of like free labor almost. You're teaching them, but then they don't really have a job at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm not actually in a full apprenticeship, I guess, kind of expert, so to speak. But I do believe that most apprenticeships are paid in some shape or form, right? Maybe not at the full, kind of market wage, so to speak, but there is some sort of compensation associated with them. So it could be something to do with compensation. It could be something to do with the fact that there's a lot involved in an apprenticeship. One, like an approved, like registered apprenticeship is not something that you spin up within a couple of hours or, even a couple of weeks. Like it's a fairly, I think, intensive process to establish those types of apprenticeship programs. So there could be a variety of factors that actually go into that. But kind of coming back from the apprenticeship concept for a second, I do think that the concept of like work and learn types of programs are extremely valuable. And I think that the more that we can kind of decentralize these from the system, so to speak, and we can provide resources and playbooks to employers on how do you spin up kind of apprenticeship light types of models to where you can take somebody that is, not trained classically in a particular skill. You can provide them employment, wages, benefits, all of the things that they need to create economic stability and some certainty, but then also factor in the learning part of the program to where they can go acquire that skill either in a classroom environment or on the job. And ultimately, you're not having to live kind of under this construct of, an accredited apprenticeship. We have a few of our customers that are doing this kind of light type of model, and they've been really successful with it. And it's become kind of part of the company ethos and culture. And I think to me, one, it's just faster. And you would have the ability to start really chipping away at the big talent kind of gap, that we see in the market that I don't think a lot of the solutions are really able to fill.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's very rigid and it's got to go fill out, the manufacturer has to get it approved kind of thing to get this started, which could take a long time.
That's
Okay.
right.
So kind of thinking about this and thinking about people in general, they either want to know, is manufacturing going to boom? Are we going to collapse? What is going to happen? And the answer is, I loved that you said quietly reconfiguring, because that's we don't know what we don't know that and what is happening so fast. It's going to take a lot of shifting and adapting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think quietly reconfiguring is a way to put it, but I do think that at least in the the information that I've seen and the people that I work alongside day to day, I think that there's a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism, across the broader manufacturing sector for a variety of reasons. One, for like the first time in I don't know 70 years. There's like a very explicit order to reindustrialize here in the United States, and that is extremely exciting because a lot of the headwinds that we see today within the sector are things that have compounded over decades through a deindustrialization of the United States. And so, bringing industry back and really focusing on pushing investments into the manufacturing infrastructure that exists today is extraordinarily exciting for the space. And so I think that um, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about it. I think as a country that over the last, let's call it like 30 years, has gotten into this habit of like designing but not building, we are now going to be able to do both. And I think that that has huge implications for everything from our own national security and defense, to the health of our huge number of different manufacturing sectors, but then also downstream. I think it has the potential to reinvigorate the path to prosperity to where we can really start rebuilding the middle class. I mean, that is truly like historians will tell you, like that was really the special sauce in America was that we had this very, very prosperous, very large middle class that really generated so much of the economic output, and that's been eroded. And so by bringing industry back, we really have the ability to um, formulate an injection into, America that you really can't find in any other sectors. And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about manufacturing.
Yeah, and it helps to be in Indiana with a lot of roots in manufacturing as well.
Right.
Okay, so kind of last thing from before I ask you some rapid fire questions. Um, when you kind of put all this together, I'm hearing a lot of, okay, these are the problems. We need to skill people up. What do you feel like is a big solution for what we're going through right now? Do you just feel like we're in it, like, and we're growing in it? But I guess what is a solution you can give to someone?
Wow, that is a hard question. I think that there is a solution, and I'm trying to think very quickly on how to give you a concise answer to that. The solution at a very, very high level. So feel free to ask, additional questions here. But I think the solution at a very high level is much bigger than a pure talent issue. It's an issue that needs to have very big entities come together to really start working on very, very scalable, but also, again, I'll use the word kind of decentralized solutions that can start chipping away at this problem. And those entities that need to be working together are one, the educational system, two, manufacturers, the employers themselves, right? So the manufacturers themselves, and then workforce and economic development. All need to be kind of coming around this problem, and we need to be looking at it like a life cycle of a worker, right? We've got a lot of people that are in high school. We've got a lot of people that don't go to college. We've got a lot of people in college. How do we look at this as our supply base, and what are the mechanisms that the employers, education, workforce can wrap around those entrants and make sure that they have ways to get accelerated skill development, right? The manufacturers and workforce need to be working together alongside education to create rules, policies, and incentives, to push manufacturers to bring these people actually into the space, and don't, worry about whether or not they're enrolled at the 2-year associate's degree at whatever university. Figure out a way to give them the skills and give them the incentives to do that. So again, it is a very, very big, complicated problem that it stretches across a lot of different domains. But The thing I feel very certain that is accurate about this statement is that education, manufacturers, workforce, and then economic development all have to come together around the problem.
I love that. And it reminds me of the Hydraulic Institute. That's the authority on pumps and pump systems. They get together and at Epic this past year, we kind of spoke on it and you kind of saw that where you have to have the associations and manufacturers talking to educational
Yeah.
institutions and, the people that are hiring. We've got to have and the people looking for a job also have to have some way to put in the input, the needs that they have in order to get them trained too. So yeah, lots of communication as always. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah. And one last thing on that I think is really important because I don't think that this is kind of the mindset today. When you put all of those entities together, there needs to be a center point, so to speak, or there needs to be an entity that the other entities are really, really thinking hard about. And let's call that the customer. The customer is the employer, right? The customer is the employer that needs to be taken care of because they provide the job opportunities that all of the workers and all of our consumers and all of our citizens basically are going to be able to go get, right? But what's important about that is like today, like education doesn't think of its employers in the local community as its customers, right? Workforce a lot of times thinks about the customer as the worker, right? But that I think economic development probably thinks about the customer as the manufacturer, right, or the employer. But if all of those customers are really, or all of those entities are thinking about the customer as the employer, you now have this kind of common language you can start building on to where, you kind of make it a simple equation. We have a lot of jobs. Here are the people with the jobs. Like, how do we prepare for this large swath, of vacancies or roles that are available in our state, our region, our nation, so on and so forth.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it there, Robert. I appreciate you. And I just want people to know a little bit more about you. So, for rapid fire, I ask, what is your favorite book? Which you have a collection behind you. So,
Oh yeah. My favorite book. Let's see. I would say my favorite, I have two favorite books. Ray Dalio's Principles is a book that I've read a few times, and I used to give it out to all of my managers that I used to work with. And then there's another book. I would be really surprised if anyone listening to the podcast has read it, but definitely give a shout out if you have. It's called How to Build a Race Car. And it's written by a guy that was the head engineer at Red Bull for many, many years and recently went on to Aston Martin Formula One. And he talks all about his life, but he kind of frames everything in this like kind of mechanical process of actually building a race car. And it's a really, really interesting read that has a lot of application to other areas, but very specific to racing. So
all
those are my
my
two.
engineers are loving this. And if they haven't read it, they're going to definitely pick it up.
Yeah,
I'm
they're gonna
excited
love
for
it.
that. Okay. What about music? Got any favorite tunes?
Yeah, I love music. The first thing that's coming to mind is, gosh, so I grew up in Texas, and I grew up in a long line of people that are from Texas, native Texans, and so every day growing up was basically old time Texas music. So Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard. That's still some of the stuff that I listen to today, and even though, like most people, I like a lot of music. That's what I think of anytime someone says, "Do you like music?"
Yeah. What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Um, the best advice I've ever received. That is really hard. I think the I think the best advice I've ever received is probably something to the effect of, you have to believe in yourself, and you need to be open-minded enough to receive feedback from others, but at the same time, like you can't take that feedback if it's discounting yourself. Like you have to believe in yourself and you need to be open-minded, but at the end of the day, it's your confidence and your belief in what you're doing that's going to take you anywhere you want to go.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur.
That's
And
right.
so thankful for that. And the belief you just have to, or you'll stop it along the way somewhere. What
All too hard.
about for manufacturing? What advice would you give somebody?
So who is the somebody we're talking to? Like,
Well, that's the hard part. So I was going to just ask you, if you were going to give somebody an industry advice, what would it be?
I guess if I was talking to manufacturers or talking to someone at a manufacturer, I guess I would give them two pieces of advice. The first would be one, find better tools to help you acquire people that have the same mindset that you want within your organization. And then the second thing don't discount the importance of retention and frontline managers' role as the first line of defense against turnover, right? I think when we look at a manufacturing facility, a lot of times the frontline workers, it's like, hey, yeah, we're going to lose 25% of them. It just happens, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. And that's a leaky part of the bucket that really impacts the industry pretty dramatically. If I was talking to just anybody about manufacturing, especially like a job seeker, I would say don't sleep on manufacturing jobs. Pound for pound, they are some of the best employment opportunities within any community. Um, they earn significantly more than a lot of the service jobs and definitely more of the gig work that is out there in the market. Especially for a young person, they provide you with opportunities to build skills to where you can go get more in-demand jobs. And that's like when I think about my kids, that's all I want for them is to be able to be in a place that gives them skills to improve and grow, grow their economic health, so to speak, right? And their own mobility. So those are probably
Absolutely.
pieces of
Absolutely.
advice.
And I think there's so much I feel like I could talk to you about here, but I'll give you the last word and just make sure that you let people know how to get in touch with you as well.
Sure. The last word. The last word is I think that we have an unbelievable manufacturing sector in this country. I think it should be like the pride of the United States in a world that is absolutely obsessed with AI and hyperscalers and data centers and all of this stuff. At the end of the day, it's companies that make all of that stuff, and like that is who we are as a country. And so, if you're interested in a company that helps those companies, SlateUp.co, not .com, but .co is the company. I'm Robert Merritt. I'm the CEO, and um, I'll make sure that you have my email address and contact information for anybody that wants to get in touch. And
Awesome.
all you got to do is reach out. I'm not that hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, and just a pleasure to talk with you, Robert. So much
Thank
information
you.
there. And share this episode, y'all. This is going to inspire somebody. It's going to remind somebody how to get a job or that they need to improve their systems in recruiting people to work with them. So, looking forward to the feedback. I definitely want to hear if you've read that book or not. I'm excited about that. And if you know anybody else in industry that should be on here, please let me know. Until next time, be empowering.